Hello, everyone, and welcome to the class. I am Mr. Banerjee. Today, we're going to look at something you hold in your hands almost every day. But maybe you've never really looked at it properly. Yes, we are going to take apart, piece by piece, this modern English textbook.
So this is the book, Bliss, the English textbook for all our Class 10 students here in West Bengal. And on the surface, it looks simple enough, isn't it? You've got some stories, some poems, a few grammar exercises, a standard textbook. But is that all there is to it?
So that's the big question we're asking today. Forget about just the lessons and the marks for a moment. What is this book actually trying to teach you? What is the secret plan behind it all? Come on, let's open it up and see for ourselves.
All right, so here's our plan for this session. First, we'll look at the Bliss Philosophy itself. Then, we'll dive into how it uses stories with a purpose. After that, it's grammar and context, and then crafting real-world writing. And finally, we will put it all together to understand what makes the complete English learner.
Okay, let's start with part 1, the Bliss Philosophy. You see, before we can understand what this book is doing, we have to understand why it even exists in the first place. And if you look very carefully, right in the forward, we find our first big clue. It says it right there. The theme is empathy and relationship. So you see, from page 1, this book is telling us it's not just about learning words and sentence structures. No, it's about feeling, it's about connecting with the characters, with the ideas, and with the whole world around you. And then there's this, the second big idea. The book is making a huge shift. It's moving away from the old style of just memorizing things. Instead, it's all about a child-centric, activity-based approach to learning. Now, child-centric, that sounds like a very big, complicated term, no? But it's actually very, very simple. It just means that you, the student, are the most important person in the classroom. The whole book is designed around you, to get you involved, to make you do things, not just sit there and listen. It's all about learning by doing. So we have the philosophy. Now let's move on and see how this actually works. How does the book take these big ideas and use them in the lessons? Well, it all starts with the stories. And believe me, these are stories with a very clear purpose.
Just have a look at the contents page. It's amazing, really. You have Narayan from our own country, India. Then you have Ted Hughes from England, Lucy Maud Montgomery from Canada. It's like a trip around the world. It's a very special selection, chosen to show you all these different places, different voices, and different ways of writing. But listen carefully now. These stories, they are not just for fun. Oh no. In the Bliss system, every single story, every poem, it's a tool. Think of it like a special instrument designed for one job, to build up your reading and understanding skills. And this shows you the method perfectly. See here on the left, you've got a small part from R.K. Narayan's Father's Help. And then look to the right. Right away, you have questions. And they are not just any random questions. They are about the exact sentences you just finished reading. So you read something, and then immediately you have to apply what you understood. It's a fantastic system for learning.
All right, now for everybody's favorite topic, grammar. But you'll see, the way Bliss handles it is very different. It's not about learning long lists of boring rules. No, it's about seeing how grammar works inside a real story. It's grammar in context. Just look at this. It's brilliant. To teach something like conjunctions, the book doesn't give you some silly sentence like the cat is on the mat. No, it uses this powerful emotional passage about Gandhiji's funeral. So while you're learning about, say, cumulative or adversative conjunctions, you're also connecting with a very important moment in our history. And because of that emotion, the grammar rule, it sticks in your head. It becomes memorable.
Okay, so we've covered reading and grammar. What comes next? Naturally, it's writing. So how does this book get you ready to actually write things you might need to in real life?
Well, it uses a very clever 3-step method. It's like building something with blocks. Step 1, you look at a perfect model, a really good example. Step 2, you take it apart in your mind and see how it's made. And step 3, you use what you've learned to build your own. It's simple. See it, understand it, then do it.
So let's take a look. Here is step 1. The task is to learn how to write a notice. So what's the first thing the book does? It shows you a perfect one. See? A notice for a school music competition.
You can see the proper format, the kind of language to use, all the important details. It's all laid out for you.
And then, after you've studied that model, you get to step 3, the application. Now it's your turn. The book asks you to write your own notice, but for a different situation, a library book donation drive. So you see, you're not just copying the first one. You have to take the rules, the structure you just learned, and apply them to a brand new problem. It's very practical.
Okay, so let's recap. We've seen the main idea behind the book. We've seen how it uses stories, how it teaches grammar, and how it builds writing skills. We've looked at all the different pieces of the puzzle. But now, it's time to put them all together. Let's look at the final blueprint, the master plan that connects everything.
And where do we find this master plan? Well, the secret. It's been hiding in plain sight all along, right at the very back of the book, in the teacher's guidelines. This part reveals that nothing, absolutely nothing in this textbook is there by chance. Every lesson, every little exercise has a specific purpose. It's all part of a bigger plan.
And this is it, the master plan itself. This table, taken from the guidelines, shows exactly what you are expected to learn. Just look at the skills it's building, not just reading and writing, but listening and speaking. 4, count them, 4 different kinds of reading skills, all these real-world writing tasks like newspaper reports and letters, and of course, a whole set of grammar skills. Every single chapter in the book is carefully designed to help you master one or more of these things.
So here's the main point, the thing I really want you to take away from this. Bliss is not just a random collection of stories and exercises. No way. It is a complete, carefully designed system. Everything is connected. The stories, the grammar, the writing, it all works together for one big purpose, to help you learn English properly, in a modern way that actually involves you in the process.
So I'll leave you with one final thought to take home. We've taken apart this textbook today and found something amazing inside, a really sophisticated machine for learning. Now, if this is the kind of thinking that goes into a standard textbook today, just imagine, what does that tell us about the future, about how all of you will be learning things tomorrow? Think about it. Thank you, class.
Welcome, class. Let's get right into it today. We're going to be exploring Father's Help by the fantastic R.K. Narayan. Now, this is the very first lesson in the West Bengal Board's English textbook, and for good reason. It's a classic story about how one little white lie can spiral, well, wonderfully out of control. And it all kicks off with a feeling I'm sure every single one of us knows all too well. We meet our main character, a young boy named Swaminathan, or just Swami. He wakes up, and that realization hits him like a ton of bricks. The weekend is over. It is Monday, and he really, really does not want to go to school. So what's a kid to do? Well, he goes for the oldest trick in the book. It's 9 o'clock. He should be on his way to school, but instead, he's wailing, "I have a headache." It's his first attempt to get out of it, but as you're about to see, it's not exactly foolproof. Now, his mother, she's a bit more sympathetic. She's generous and suggests, hey, maybe he could stay home. And for just a second, you think, okay, Swami's plan might actually work. But then his father comes into the room. And boom, just like that, the whole plan is completely shattered. His father is way more strict and sees right through the excuse. He calls it nonsense and even throws in a little bit of advice. Loaf about less on Sundays and you will be without a headache on Monday. Ouch. Yeah, that one had to sting. So attempt number 1 is a total failure. Okay, so plan A didn't work. Time for plan B. Swami pivots. If being sick isn't going to work, maybe a timing issue will. He argues that it's already 9:30 and there's no way he can show up to class this late. You know, it's a pretty smart change in tactics, but it is about to backfire spectacularly. And this, my friends, is where the story takes a fantastic and hilarious turn. Instead of getting into a big argument or punishing Swami, his father comes up with a different idea, a solution that Swami absolutely did not see coming. His father agrees. He says, "You're right. You shouldn't be afraid of being late." And to fix it, he says he's going to write a letter to the headmaster. So while Swami is getting dressed, his father just sits down, writes out this long letter, puts it in an envelope, and seals it. Swami can only stand there and watch in growing horror. His small problem just became a very, very big one. All right, pop quiz time, everyone. Let's do a quick check to see if you're paying attention. Based on what we just heard, what is Father's big solution? Is it a telegram?
A notice, a letter, or a report? Take a second to think about it. If you said letter, you are absolutely right. In his father's mind, a formal letter is going to solve everything. For poor Swami, though, this letter is basically a ticking time bomb he has to carry to school. So now Swami is completely trapped, right? He's backed into a corner. He has to justify why he's so scared of being late, which means he has to justify this letter. So what does he do? He does what any cornered kid would do. He starts making things up, and his imagination just goes into overdrive. He starts spinning this yarn to his father about his teacher, Samuel. He says Samuel is this incredibly angry man who beats the students, especially the ones who show up late. You see, he's desperately trying to get his dad to change his mind about the letter, but all he's really doing is pouring gasoline on the fire. And this slide right here, it perfectly shows the massive gap between what's real and what Swami's making up. On the left, we have the real Samuel from the book, a man with a dark face, a thin mustache, and a yellow coat. But on the right, that's the monster Swami has painted for his father, this violent, scary figure. So, as Swami is walking to school with that dreaded letter in his pocket, his conscience starts to kick in. He tries to think of even one time Samuel was as awful as he described, and he can't. He gets this sinking feeling that he's completely blurred the line between what's real and what he just invented. And this brings us to a fantastic vocabulary word from the text, apprehensively. The book says Swami asks his father about the letter apprehensively, and that word just perfectly captures how he's feeling, this mix of worry, fear, and just total dread about the awful consequences he knows are coming his way. Okay, so Swami finally gets to school, letter in hand. This is the moment of truth, and his whole complicated lie starts to unravel the very second he comes face to face with a man he just turned into a villain, Samuel. Swami is bracing for a storm. He's expecting to get yelled at. But instead, the real Samuel is gentle. He asks about Swami's headache, and when he hears that his father sent him to school anyway, he's actually impressed. He says, "Your father is quite right. We want more parents like him." I mean, this is the exact opposite of what Swami was expecting. And that kindness, it's just too much for Swami. He's absolutely flooded with guilt. Right there, in that moment, he realizes that the teacher he just trashed in a letter to the headmaster is actually one of the kindest, most decent people he knows. The weight of his lie is just crushing him. So at the end of the school day, Swami figures he just has to bite the bullet and deliver the letter. He runs to the headmaster's office, ready to face the music, but there's one final twist. The peon tells him the headmaster is on leave for a whole week. The letter can't be delivered. He's been saved by the bell. Swami runs all the way home, so excited, thinking he's won. He tells his father the news. But his father's reaction is, well, it's not what he was hoping for. He calls Swami a coward, snatches the letter right out of his hand, and tears it to pieces, delivering the final ironic lesson of the day. If you get in trouble with Samuel now, you're completely on your own. So that's the story. It's a fun, relatable story about a lie that gets way out of hand. But this is where we need to put on our student hats and ask the most important question of all. Seriously, think about it. Why start the entire school year with this story? Is it just about the moral of don't lie? Well, that's part of it for sure. But there's a much deeper, much more clever reason that it's right here at the beginning. And here's the cool part. We don't even have to guess what that reason is. The textbook itself tells us. If you flip to the teacher's guidelines section in your book, it spells out the exact educational goals for this lesson. And here it is, the big secret. The story is a tool. It's a vehicle for teaching you core English skills. All the dialogue is packed with different tenses. The descriptions are designed to reinforce how to use articles and prepositions. And most importantly, that letter, the thing the whole plot revolves around, it's a perfect model to teach you how to write a formal letter. The story makes learning grammar fun. How clever is that? And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Beyond all the grammar, the story leaves us with this really powerful question about truth and perspective. Swami created a monster in his head that wasn't real, and it led to all these consequences he never intended. It's a timeless reminder for all of us, isn't it? To think about our words and how easily we can mix up what's real with what we just imagine. Thank you for joining today's class.
All right, everyone. Today we're going to take a look at a short, but wow, a really powerful poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's called Fable. Now, don't let that simple title fool you. This poem is basically a dramatic showdown, a clash of titans, and we are going to break it all down. Okay, let's dive right in. The poem wastes absolutely no time setting the stage. Right off the bat, in the very first 2 lines, we've got our conflict and our characters. This huge, unmoving mountain, and this tiny, scrappy squirrel, and they're having a quarrel, an argument. It immediately makes you think, what on earth could a mountain and a squirrel possibly argue about? But before we get into the nitty-gritty of their fight, let's just pull back for a second, because to really get the message of this fable, we kind of need to understand the person who wrote it and the really big idea he was trying to get across. So the author is Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a huge deal in 19th century American literature. This guy was a poet, an essayist, a philosopher, and he loved to think about big stuff, nature, being an individual, our place in the universe. And he was a master at using these simple little stories, these fables, to explore some seriously complex ideas. And this right here, this is the central theme of the entire poem. This is what Emerson is trying to prove. He's making the case that everything, from the biggest mountain to the smallest little creature, has its own purpose, its own reason for being here. It's a really deep idea packed into this simple story, so keep this in mind as we watch this whole fight unfold. So, who throws the first punch? Well, the fight gets started when the mountain decides to use its size as a weapon. Not physically, of course, but with its words. The poem says, "And the former called the latter little prig." Now that's a bit of old-fashioned language. The former just means the first one mentioned, so the mountain. The latter means the second one, the squirrel. So the mountain literally looks down and insults the squirrel. And it doesn't just call it small, it uses a very specific and pretty nasty word. Yeah, prig. It's not a word you hear every day, is it? So what is the mountain really saying here? What's the weight behind this insult, little prig? So a prig is someone who acts all morally superior, like a smug little know-it-all. By calling the squirrel a little prig, the mountain is basically saying, you're not just small and worthless, you're also arrogant and you act like you're so much better than you actually are. I mean, that's a serious insult. It's meant to completely shut the squirrel down. So how does the squirrel respond to that? Does it get mad? Does it run away and hide? Nope. The squirrel, and we find out his name is Bun, comes back with a reply that is just calm, logical, and absolutely brilliant. Let's walk through his argument. Bun kicks things off with a super clever move. He doesn't deny what the mountain is saying. He just says, you are doubtless very big. He completely agrees with the obvious truth. Yep, you're huge. I get it. This is such a great strategy. It immediately shows the mountain that Bun is being reasonable. He's not just flying off the handle. And right here, Bun completely flips the script. He widens the perspective. He's saying you can't just look at one thing, like bigness. You have to consider everything else, all sorts of things and weather, all the different little pieces that make up the world. And this is where his argument really comes together. Just like you need all the different types of weather and seasons to make a full year, you need all the different beings, big and small, to make up a sphere, the entire world. It's such a beautiful and logical point. And here it is. This is the emotional core of the squirrel's comeback. I think it no disgrace to occupy my place. This is just such a powerful statement of self-worth. The squirrel is basically saying, I might be small, but I'm not ashamed of it. I have a place in this world, and I have just as much right to be here as you do. So let's look at the big takeaway here, the moral of the story. The squirrel's argument has totally reframed the debate. It's not about who is bigger anymore, it's about what role each of them plays. This slide really lays out the two opposing philosophies perfectly. The mountain has this super simple worldview. Bigger is better. Size equals importance. But the squirrel, he has a much more complex and honestly a much wiser view. Everyone has a unique purpose, and you need all those different purposes to make the world work. So the bottom line of this fable is this. Everyone and everything has a unique and valuable role to play. Nothing is just there. It was all put together with wisdom and purpose. The mountain has its strengths for sure, but so does the squirrel. Their differences don't make one better, they just make them different. And that's the final thought Emerson leaves us with. He kind of turns the question on us, doesn't he? It's something for all of us to think about. We can't all be mountains, so what are our unique talents? What's our individual place in this big sphere? The poem reminds us that just being ourselves isn't a disgrace. It's actually our most essential contribution to the world.
Hello and welcome. Today, we're not just reading a story. We're going to step inside a single profound moment in history, and we're going to see it through the eyes of someone who is actually there. We're going to break down how just a few very carefully chosen words can capture the soul of an entire nation in mourning. So let's get started. This sentence right here, this is our way in. It's the quiet before the storm, That moment of collective shock before the grief just washes over everyone. Let's dig into how the author builds up to this incredibly powerful moment. So for this session, we're going straight to the source material. This is the Bliss English textbook, used for Class X in the West Bengal board. We're going to approach this text like a masterclass, really unlocking all the layers of meaning hidden inside these pages. Now, to really understand a piece of writing like this, you have to know the person who wrote it. And Nayantara Sahgal, well, she isn't just some author writing about the past. She's a witness, and her personal experience is absolutely key to unlocking the power of this story. And this context is so crucial. I mean, look at this. Nayantara Sahgal is a literary giant, but the most important part? This piece comes from her memoir. It's a story from her own life. So what we're reading isn't fiction. This is a real, first-hand account of a world-changing event from someone who was right there in the thick of it. Okay. Let's turn to the text itself. I want you to pay really close attention to how Sahgal uses these simple, almost mundane details to paint a picture of calm, right before the devastating news just crashes in. It starts so simply, doesn't it? Having tea at home. It's a picture of perfect everyday peace. And this is such a brilliant technique for a writer to use. You establish this baseline of normal, of calm, right before the chaos hits. And boom, there it is, the pivot. Just 2 words, urgent telephone, and the whole mood just shatters. The peace is gone, the world is about to change, and for her, it all starts with the ring of a phone. So after she gets in the car, this is her reaction. I was numb with shock. This short, punchy phrase, it just perfectly captures that initial paralyzing disbelief. It's that quiet, internal freezing, a feeling that would soon spread to every single corner of the nation. Now, this is just a brilliant use of a simile, comparing 2 things using like or as. The news spreading like a flame fanned by wind isn't just about speed, it's about destruction. It's about something that's unstoppable and all-consuming. It's a wildfire of grief. All right, let's zoom in a little bit on the language itself. As any good reader knows, word choice is everything. We're going to dissect some of the incredibly powerful vocabulary that Sahgal uses to paint this scene of grief for us. Do you notice the shift here? We've gone from that stunned silence to just overwhelming chaos. The grief isn't quiet anymore. It's found its voice, and it's a desperate, physical force. So the textbook tells us clamored means demanded loudly, but it's so much more than just noise, isn't it? It's the sound of desperation. It's people demanding answers, demanding that this horrible thing isn't real. It's the sound of a world that has been turned completely upside down. And look at this word, jostled. It's so physical. You can almost feel the sharp, desperate push of the crowd, the surge of thousands of people all trying to get closer, to break through and just be near their Bapu one last time. This image is incredibly powerful. The author doesn't see individual people anymore, just a brown blur of faces. The crowd has become one single, unified mass of sorrow. Their individual identities have been completely erased by the sheer scale of their shared loss. So this is where the story really expands. Sahgal masterfully takes her own personal shock and shows us how it mirrored the feelings of an entire country. Let's take a look at how she pulls this off. Remember how the author herself felt numb with shock? Well, here we see that her personal reaction was the nation's reaction. It was a shared, silent, paralyzing shock that fell over everyone as the news spread like that wildfire we were just talking about. This question, this cuts right to the heart of the tragedy. It's the sound of one person's whimper, but it speaks for millions. It's the cry of a nation that suddenly feels orphaned, lost, and completely unprotected. And here it is. The author confirms it. She takes that single personal cry of despair and makes it universal. She's telling us that this feeling of what will become of me was the unspoken question in every single heart. She gives a voice to the collective soul of a mourning nation. And really, that's the ultimate power of this piece, isn't it? Through all these specific details, this powerful imagery, and a deep sense of shared humanity, Nayantara Sahgal's personal story becomes a timeless record of a nation's sorrow. It teaches us that sometimes the best way to understand history isn't through facts and figures, but through a single, honest voice speaking right from the heart.
All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're diving into a poem that starts with just a simple walk in the woods, but believe me, it turns into something truly life-changing. We're going to unpack Ted Hughes's My Own True Family and really get to the bottom of the powerful secret that's hiding in its lines. So, let's just start with this idea. Picture this. You're walking through a forest, right? What if those huge, silent trees you pass, what if they suddenly had a voice? And what if they had a secret just for you? Just kind of hold that thought as we get into this.
Okay, so our journey begins. Let's step into the world of this poem, into this mysterious oak wood.
And hey, just so we're all on the same page here, everything we're looking at comes straight from this Class X textbook. So yeah, you could say class is officially in session. And what we find inside is our subject for today, My Own True Family, written by the celebrated and, pretty intense English poet Ted Hughes. This guy was actually the poet laureate of Great Britain, so you just know we're in for something really special. So the textbook itself sets the stage perfectly. It calls the child's experience magical. And that's exactly the right word. Because as you're about to find out, this kind of magic is, well, it's both wonderful and pretty terrifying.
All right, let's get into the poem itself. The story kicks off, and boom, right away we're hit with a mystery.
Just listen to how this starts. Once I crept. See that word, crept? It gives you this feeling of quiet, almost sneaky movement. The child isn't just taking a stroll. They're on a mission, looking for a stag. And a stag is often the symbol of the wild, untamed spirit of the forest. And then something happens. An encounter. But it's not with this majestic stag he was looking for. No, it's an old woman. And look at the description, all knobbly stick and rag. It's so stark, isn't it? Kind of unsettling. She sounds frail, maybe poor, but also maybe a little dangerous. And then she just drops this bombshell. She says, I have your secret here, inside my little bag. His secret? What secret? The kid doesn't even know they have a secret. And that right there is the hook. That's what pulls us right into the heart of this poem's mystery. Okay, so from here, things escalate. The whole vibe shifts from just mysterious to, frankly, pretty menacing. That secret is about to come out, and it's gonna be dramatic. Real quick, let's just zoom in on a key word here, right from the textbook's word list. Knobbly. It means unsteady, kind of gnarled and unstable, which, let me tell you, is the perfect description for the situation this child is about to find themselves in. So get this, then she began to cackle, and I began to quake. Her laugh isn't a happy one, it's a cackle. And the child's reaction? Pure fear. They start to quake. You can just feel the power shifting right in that moment. And then we get this line, which is just incredible. She opened up her little bag, and I came twice awake. Twice awake. It's such a strange, powerful phrase, right? It's obviously not just about waking up from a nap. So let's really think about that. Twice awake? What could that possibly mean? I mean, this is the kind of stuff poets do, right? They give us these lines that just make you stop and think. It's a jolt, a real shock to the system. Okay, so think of it like this. Your first awake is just, the normal everyday world. But this second awake is something way deeper. It's like a sudden, shocking realization, a new awareness of some hidden truth about the world, and more importantly, about your place in it. And in that exact moment of being twice awake, everything changes. The whole world just transforms. The kid is no longer this curious little explorer. Suddenly they're a prisoner, surrounded by a staring tribe and me tied to a stake. They're completely helpless. And this is it. This is the moment everything has been building towards. We're at the very heart of the poem. That staring tribe is finally going to reveal who they are, and they have a serious message to deliver. And here it is, the big reveal. They said, "We are the oak trees and your own true family." Whoa, The tribe? The old woman? They're the oak trees. And they're not just some random trees. They're claiming the child as their family. This changes everything. Just look at how everything has been flipped on its head here. Before, you had a curious kid exploring. Now, he's a captive. Before, you had a frail old woman. Now, she's part of this ancient, powerful tribe. The power has totally, completely shifted. And now, the family speaks, and it's an accusation. This is basically the voice of nature talking directly to all of us, to humanity. It's this powerful statement about how we just don't care about the destruction we cause. We are chopped down, we are torn up, you do not blink an eye. That's a heavy line. And then comes the ultimatum. And this is not a polite request, it's a threat. Unless you make a promise now, you are going to die. The poem is literally connecting our survival, human survival, directly to the survival of the natural world. So that was the secret in the bag all along, this deep, undeniable truth that we are all connected. So when you get right down to it, Ted Hughes isn't just telling us some spooky campfire story. He's using this whole magical experience to shake us, to wake us up, to make us twice awake, to the fact that we're part of nature's family, and right now we're breaking some pretty fundamental rules of that relationship. In the end, the child makes a promise. And that really brings me to our final thought here. The poem might have been a dream, a vision, but the warning inside it, that's very real. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. The poem hinges on a promise. What promise does our world, our own true family, need us to make today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome. You know that feeling, right? When you read the very first line of a story and you just know you're in for something special? Well, that's exactly the kind of magic we're going to unpack today. Think of this as our classroom, where we're going to see how just a few simple sentences can build an entire world right before our eyes. So let's get started. What is it that makes a story's opening so powerful? That first sentence that just grabs you and won't let go. Today, we're going to take a really close look at the first few lines of a classic short story to figure out exactly how a writer pulls that off. And our text for today's lesson comes straight from the Class X English textbook, Bliss. We're jumping into Lesson 5. Now, on the surface, this story seems pretty simple. But trust me, hidden in these opening lines are some of the biggest secrets to what makes writing truly great. The story is A Runaway Kite, and it's by the absolutely brilliant Lucy Maud Montgomery. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should. She's the genius behind Anne of Green Gables. So, yeah, we're in the hands of a real pro here, a true master of the craft. Our whole mission today is to see how Montgomery uses just a handful of carefully chosen words to paint this incredibly vivid picture. She introduces her characters and sets up this big central question that you just have to get an answer to. It's amazing, a total masterclass in how to tell a story efficiently. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read the first 3 sentences of the story out loud. As you listen, don't just hear the words. I want you to really think about what's being revealed. What are we learning? And maybe even more important, how do these words make you feel? Okay, ready? Here we go. Of course, there was nobody for us to play with on the big half moon. Whoa. Right away, that little phrase, of course, tells you everything. It's like this loneliness isn't new. It's just a fact of life for our narrator. And we immediately get a sense of place, the big half moon, and this powerful feeling of isolation. Next sentence. It used to be only Father and Claude and I. Now, did you catch those 2 little words, used to? That is so important. That simple phrase just cracks the whole story wide open. It immediately creates a before and an after. It tells us the world has changed, and bam, a mystery is born. And then, this. It is all on account of the kite that there are more of us. And there it is, the hook, the one thing that changed everything. In just one sentence, that problem of loneliness seems to be solved, but a brand new mystery takes its place. The family is bigger now, and it's all because of a kite? How? Why? You have to keep reading, right? You just have to know. Okay, excellent. So now, let's put on our literary detective hats, shall we? Let's break down exactly what Montgomery managed to do in that incredibly short opening. I mean, really think about it. What have we actually learned in just those 3 sentences? How much of this world do we already get a feel for? Well, the answer is a whole lot. It's kind of amazing when you stop and look at it. Let's map it out on this table here. Look at this. For the setting, we've got Big Half Moon, which sounds totally isolated. For characters, we have a little family, Father, Claude, and our narrator. The main conflict? Loneliness. It's right there in the first line. And the foreshadowing, that little hint of what's coming, a kite is about to change everything. All 4 basic building blocks of a story delivered in an instant. And if you read just a tiny bit further, the world gets even richer. We find out Father is the lighthouse keeper, which explains all the isolation. We even learn the narrator is 11 and her brother Claude is 12. This isn't just a rough sketch. She's painting a really detailed picture for us super fast. And this right here is the heart of the story's mystery. All of its energy comes from the journey between these 2 states, the then and the now. How did they get from a quiet, lonely life of just 3 people to, well, a life with more of them? The bridge connecting that past to the present, it's that runaway kite. So this all brings us back to the power of a great beginning. It's so easy to just read past it, but a great opening does so much work. It's not just starting the story, it's making a promise to you, the reader, a promise of an interesting world and a mystery worth solving. And that's really our main takeaway today. A truly masterful writer doesn't waste a single word. They use those first few crucial lines to lay the entire foundation for the story, welcoming us into a world that feels real and exciting from the very first sentence. So you could almost say Montgomery gives us this simple but super powerful 3-step formula. First, step 1, the problem. She gives us something we can all relate to, loneliness. Step 2, the characters. She introduces us to the people who are dealing with that problem. And step 3, the hook. She hints at the strange, unexpected thing, the kite, that's going to change their lives forever. Problem, characters, hook. It's just the perfect recipe for a start you can't put down.
So as we wrap up our lesson, I'll leave you with a question to think about. Think about the books you love, the stories that have stayed with you for years. What was it about their opening lines that just pulled you in? Next time you pick up a new book, pay extra close attention to that very first page. You might just see the magic behind the curtain. Thanks for joining the class today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful poem from your Bliss textbook. It's called Sea Fever by John Masefield. But before we get into the lines, let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt this pull towards something? A feeling so strong it's almost like a fever? An urge that you just cannot ignore. I want you to hold on to that feeling because that is the heart of the poem we are going to study today. Okay, so the poet is John Edward Masefield. He was an English poet laureate, a very respected position. And as your textbook rightly points out, this poem is all about the intense excitement for a sea voyage. It's about that deep desire we sometimes feel to connect with the grandeur of nature. So let's see how Masefield brings this feeling to life, shall we? All right, let's begin. A Fever for the Sea, the first stanza. We're going to start right at the beginning to see just how the poet expresses this incredibly powerful feeling. So the poem begins, I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky. Now listen carefully to those words. The poet doesn't say, oh, I want to go, or I would like to go. He says, I must go. You see, this is not just a simple wish, it's a compulsion, a deep, powerful need that he cannot deny. And what does he need for this journey? And all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. Look at how simple his needs are. He isn't asking for gold or a huge crew or anything fancy. All he needs is a good, strong ship and one star in the sky to guide him. So what does that tell you about him? It tells us he is a true sailor at heart, isn't it? Someone who only needs the basics to feel at home on the vast sea. And that word steer, it's very important. If you look in the word nest in your textbook, it tells you it means to control the direction of movement. So you see, that star, it's not just there to look pretty. It's a practical, essential tool for a sailor to find his way across the huge, empty ocean. Now, in the next lines, Masefield makes us feel like we are right there on the ship. He uses these amazing sights and sounds. First, the wheels kick. Can you imagine it? You can almost feel the power of the waves pushing back against the ship's wheel. Then there's the wind song. Notice he calls it a song, not just a noise. It has a music to it. And finally, the white sails shaking. You can just picture it, can't you?
the big sail trembling as it fills with wind. All these details, they just bring the entire scene to life.
The first stanza then ends with this line, and a gray mist on the sea's face, and a gray dawn breaking. See the repetition of the word gray? What kind of feeling does that create? It's a very quiet, very mysterious mood, maybe even a little bit lonely. It paints a picture of the very beginning of the journey, that silent moment just before the sun is fully up.
All right, now we move to this second stanza, and you'll see that this fever, this unstoppable call of the sea, it only gets stronger. The poet's desire just keeps building.
And look, he starts with the same line again. I must go down to the seas again. When a poet repeats a line like this, you have to pay attention. It's like a constant drumbeat, showing his obsession. And this time, he gives us a reason why. He says it's for the call of the running tide. It's as if the tide itself is speaking to him, calling his name. So, what kind of call is this? Well, the poem tells us it's a wild call, like something from nature that can't be tamed. It's a clear call. He hears it perfectly. There's no confusion. And then the most important part. It is a call that may not be denied. Think about that. He has no choice. It's like a force of nature pulling him in, and he is powerless to resist. And once again, his needs are so simple, so typical of a sailor. And all I ask is a windy day with the white clouds flying. Now, why would a sailor want a windy day? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? No wind means no movement. The wind is the engine for a tall ship. It fills the sails and pushes it forward. And that image of the white clouds flying, it just adds to that feeling of speed, of freedom, of rushing forward that he so desperately wants.
Then he gives us even more amazing images. And the flung spray and the blown spume and the seagulls crying. Oh, you can just feel that cold spray on your face, can't you? And you can hear that classic sound of the sea, the seagulls. But hang on a minute. What is this word, spume? Any idea what that might be?
Well, if we check our word nest again, it's very simple. Spume just means foam. You know, the white frothy stuff on top of the waves. So the poet wants to see this foam being blown by the wind. It's another sign of a powerful, energetic, living ocean. Okay, moving on to the final part we'll cover today, a wanderer's life. You'll see that he repeats his desire one more time, but this time he tells us what kind of life he's looking for. And there's that line again, I must go down to the seas again. But look what he adds, to the vagrant gypsy life. Now, what does that mean? A vagrant gypsy life is a life of wandering, a nomadic life, with no permanent home, no fixed roots. It's a life of absolute freedom. So for our poet, the sea isn't just water. It's the pathway to this kind of free, wandering life. And he wants to live like the creatures of the sea, to the gull's way and the whale's way. He doesn't want to follow human roads or maps. He wants to follow the paths that nature has already made. And then, what a powerful line, where the wind's like a whetted knife. A knife! That tells you the wind is sharp, it's cold, it cuts. It's a difficult life, a harsh environment. But it's exactly what he wants. And again, your book helps us out here. Whetted simply means sharpened. So this isn't some soft, gentle breeze we are talking about. No, this is a sharp, biting wind, the kind that makes you feel truly alive. It shows us that the poet is not just dreaming of a romantic holiday. He understands the reality, the harshness of a sailor's life. So what's the big idea here? What is the most crucial point to understand? It's this. For the poet, this is not just a vacation. This is not about taking a cruise for a week. No, this is something much, much deeper. It's a spiritual need, an undeniable calling to a life of freedom, of adventure, and of being completely connected to the raw power of nature. So, I want to leave you with a thought. The poet, he heard the wild, clear call of the sea. Now, what about you? What is the call that you hear in your life? What is that passion, that dream, that thing that pulls you so strongly? What is your wild and clear call that you feel you simply must answer? I want you to think about that. We will continue with the rest of the poem in our next class. Thank you.
All right, let's dive into a fantastic poem by Andrew Barton Paterson called The Cat. Now, this piece makes a pretty bold claim that the quiet, furry little creature you see purring on your couch is actually a master of disguise leading a double life that's way more adventurous than you could ever imagine. So, I've got to ask you, straight up, do you really know the cat that lives in your house? Paterson's poem challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to really wonder what our pets are up to the second we turn our backs. Okay, so to get to the truth, we first have to tackle the myth, that cozy but totally incomplete picture that most of us have of your average house cat. And this quote from the text, it just nails that myth perfectly. This is the official story we all tell ourselves, that cats are simple, kind of dumb creatures who only care about comfort, mice, and milk. This is the starting point for our whole investigation. So, you get the picture, right? Our perception is built on these ideas. We see them as lazy, simple, maybe a little timid, definitely not having a ton of character. This is the daytime cat, the one that lives in our world, playing by our rules. But is that the whole story? Not even close. Let's look at the evidence that actually supports this myth for a second. Paterson gives us a really clear picture of the cat's daytime persona. You know, the character it plays for its human family. And this just says it all, doesn't it? During the day, the cat is the very picture of domestic life. It loafs about, letting itself be pestered and petted. It seems totally passive, patient, and completely harmless. A professional lounger, you could say. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. This is our first clue that there's something more going on. The cat is super friendly, sure, purring and rubbing up against people, but the poem reveals it's all an act. This polite behavior is just a strategy to get a piece of the action, to get some food. It's our first hint that there's a pretty sharp mind behind those innocent-looking eyes. And that brings us to the turning point, because as the day starts to fade into night, that performance ends. The lazy, passive creature we think we know just vanishes, and something completely different starts to emerge. Seriously, this line from the text is everything. It's like an invitation to witness a secret transformation. The whole story pivots right here, shifting us from the familiar world of the house to the wild, hidden world of the cat. I mean, just look at this comparison. The contrast is absolutely incredible. The meek creature becomes a grim fighter. The lazy loafer becomes a determined explorer of his territory. The house pet becomes a live panther. It's not just a change in behavior, it's a total identity swap. So, now that the sun has set, we can finally start peeling back the layers. Let's take a look at the hidden reality, the authentic life the cat leads under the cover of darkness. You see, just as the family is settling down for the night, the cat's true life begins. This isn't just a casual evening stroll. This is the start of its real job, its true purpose. The house was just the daytime office. The world outside, that's where it truly comes alive. And just listen to the words used to describe its movements. It saunters, it springs, it trots. There's a confidence and an athleticism here that we never get to see during the day. It moves with the grace and the silence of a panther, a total master of its domain. This brings us to a really important term, grim fighter. It just completely shatters our perception of that timid little pet. The text clarifies that grim here means serious. This is not a game. The cat is an athlete, an acrobat, and a deadly serious fighter defending its turf in a world full of dangers. So once you see the cat as a grim fighter, it forces you to look at it in a completely new way. Its life is so much richer, more complex, and way more adventurous than we ever could have imagined. His world is one of high stakes. Our boring suburban backyards are his personal hunting grounds. Paterson even claims he has adventures that rival the Knights of the Round Table. He's got a social life, a map of his territory burned into his brain, and most importantly, he lives life completely on his own terms. And this is the final, brilliant challenge the author leaves us with. After revealing this secret life of adventure and freedom, he turns the mirror back on us. This supposedly simple animal might actually be living a fuller, more authentic life than we are. Now that is a powerful thought. Which leaves us with this final question to chew on. If the humble house cat leads such an epic double life, what other secret worlds are unfolding right under our noses, completely hidden in plain sight? What are we missing when we only see what we expect to see?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our class today. We are going to get to know a very, very tiny creature that you'll see has a surprisingly big story to tell. So let's get right into it. So for today's lesson, we're going to be looking directly at your Class X Bliss textbook from our very own West Bengal board curriculum. So Get your books ready, open your minds, and let's prepare for a deep dive into a very, very special poem. All right, so we are on Lesson 8, and we'll be unpacking a wonderfully observant poem called The Snail. Now, you might be thinking, what can we possibly learn from such a small creature? Well, let's find out, shall we? Now, before we meet our small, shelled friend, it's always important to meet the person who observed it so carefully, nah? So let's get to know the poet William Cowper and the quiet, self-contained world he's inviting us to explore. So who was this man, William Cowper? Well, he was actually one of the most popular poets of the 18th century. And you know why? It wasn't because he wrote about grand battles or kings and queens. No. He found poetry right outside his window, in the English countryside, in the quiet, simple things of daily life, and of course, in its tiniest creatures. And that, right there, is the real heart of this poem. You see, Cowper isn't just looking at the snail from a distance. He's inviting us into its private world. It might be a very small world, sure, but as we are about to discover, it is entirely self-contained. It is complete in itself. So let's read these opening lines together. Just listen to the gentle, steady rhythm he creates. To grass or leaf or fruit or wall, the snail sticks close, nor fears to fall, as if he grew their house and all together. It's such a simple and beautiful image, isn't it? Okay, so let's really break this down. What is Cowper really showing us in these opening 4 lines? What's the very first impression we're getting of our little subject here? That first line, to grass or leaf or fruit or wall, it tells us so much. For the snail, its entire universe is just whatever surface it's on at that moment. It's so completely attached, so much a part of its little world, that it has absolutely no fear of falling. And please, pay close attention to this final line here, as if he grew there, house and all, together. This is such a powerful image. Cowper isn't just saying the snail is carrying its house, he's suggesting they are one and the same, one inseparable being that just grew right there. Together. So the snail is perfectly at home wherever it is. But what happens when that peace is disturbed? Let's look at how this creature protects itself. You'll see, it's like a tiny, mobile fortress. Just listen to this. Within that house secure he hides, when danger imminent betides, of storm or other harm besides, of weather. You can feel that change in the mood, can't you? Suddenly there's a sense of threat, a danger approaching its peaceful little world. And that brings us to a key word from our textbook's word nest, imminent. What does it mean? Likely to happen soon. Now this is so important. It means the snail doesn't wait for danger to be right on top of it. No, it senses it coming and it acts immediately. So you see, we really have 2 different sides to the snail's life. On one hand, there is complete peace and security. It sticks close, it fears nothing at all. But on the other hand, at the very first sign of danger, its behavior changes completely. It hides, it shrinks. It's a very big and fascinating contrast, right? And just how fast is this reaction? Listen, give but his horns the slightest touch, his self-collecting power is such, he shrinks into his house with much displeasure. It's incredible, an instantaneous reflex. And notice that final word, displeasure. The snail isn't portrayed as fearful, but is annoyed. It's displeased that its private world has been disturbed. So, let's put all of these observations together now. Based on what we've just read, what can we conclude about the snail's way of life? What kind of creature has William Cowper truly painted for us? Okay, let's summarize the key traits we've uncovered so far. Because the snail carries its own home, it is totally self-sufficient, perfectly secure. This allows it to live a highly private and solitary life, and it seems quite content in its own small world, always ready to react instantly to any threat it senses. And that brings us to our final big question for today. We have seen that the snail's life is one of almost perfect security and self-sufficiency. But I want to leave you with this to think about. Is this a life of perfect safety, or is it a life of perfect loneliness? That is a question to carry with you as you think more about this lovely poem. That's all for our lesson today. Well done, everyone.